Ranking Member Mr. Graves of Missouri, Chairman DeFazio, Ranking Member Mr. Graves of Louisiana, honorable members of this committee. My name is Captain Daniel Carey. I am a 35-year career pilot at American Airlines. I am also president of the Allied Pilots Association, the largest independent airline pilots union in the world. I also serve as a member of the board of the Coalition of Airline Pilots Associations here in Washington, a trade group representing 32,000 professional airline pilots whose concern is safety and security of the traveling public. The piloting profession is in my family. My father and two uncles were fighter pilots in World War II, one of whom lost his life in the service of our nation. My father was an early pioneer with Trans World Airlines, and my daughter pursues a professional career as a commercial pilot today. I'd also like to recognize the family of Samia Stumo, who's here today. God bless you all. Samia was a young woman as well, pursuing her career and young life, and tragically lost her life on ET 302. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, what brings us together today is the tragic accidents of two Boeing MAX aircraft. We owe it to those 346 souls and the flying public around the world to make sure these kind of events never happen again. In my 35-year career at American Airlines, I've operated as captain on 5 different types of airplanes, 28 years on Boeing aircraft. I'm here to tell you, Boeing designs and engineers and manufactures superb aircraft. Unfortunately, in the case of the MAX, I'll have to agree with Boeing CEO. They let the traveling public down in a fatal and catastrophic way. As said here earlier by some of the speakers, we will await the conclusion of the several investigations underway around the world before we determine the final judgment of the MAX disasters. There are a few facts we do know. The MAX was designed to provide the same aircraft feel as the 737. This was intended to minimize cost to Boeing's customers by allowing the MAX to be certified as a 737-typed aircraft. This led Boeing engineers to add the MCAS system. Many mistakes were subsequently made by Boeing, as the MCAS was designed as a federated, not an integrated, aircraft system. As a single port of failure, this design meant that the redundancy of the system went back to the captain and first officer of the aircraft. The huge error of omission was the fact that Boeing failed to disclose the existence of the MCAS system to the pilot community around the world. The final fatal mistake was therefore the absence of robust pilot training in the event of an MCAS failure. The most important issue now is the question of the airworthiness of the MAX aircraft. I believe the Boeing engineers have indeed found the problems to the software issues facing the MAX. And therefore, the redundancies are now embedded in the aircraft in the event of a misfiring of the MCAS going forward. However, at APA, we remain concerned about whether the new training protocol, materials, and methods of instruction suggested by Boeing are adequate to ensure that pilots across the nation and around the world can operate the MAX fleet with absolute and complete safety. In fact, during a meeting with the FAA in April, the FAA officials highlighted a critical checklist that Boeing directed pilots to use to recover the MAX after an MCAS firing. The FAA official stated that this critical checklist had not been validated since 1967. This is an example of why the APA has integrated into the Flight Standardization Board comments calling for the review, improvement, and training of critical MCAS misfire recovery checklists. I don't have all the answers today, nobody does, but I do have some questions. First, is the FAA sufficiently independent of the manufacturers as to provide legitimately rigorous audit of manufacturing, design, and engineering? Second, should a federated system, which may lead to an unrecoverable event, be certified ever by the FAA? Third, should the FAA aircraft certification, as for example, a 737 designation from 1967, have a timeline or a sunset date? Finally, is the FAA sufficiently equipped to ensure that pilot training protocols are vigorous and robust as aircraft become more and more sophisticated? Mr. Chairman, These are among the questions that I hope this committee examines, and of course, there are many others. Unfortunately, as pilots know, improvements in aviation are too often, written in the blood of the unfortunate victims of these airplane accidents. But all of us, pilots, flight attendants, airline companies, manufacturers, the executive branch of our government, and Congress, owe it to the victims at the highest level of diligence to make sure these kind of accidents never happen again. This is a global aviation crisis of trust and will require global solutions to restore and bolster culture and respect.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
The pilots of the Allied Pilots Association are humbled and proud to be part of this noble cause. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Chair now recognizes